The thing that always amazes me about these folks is just their personal stories, you know.
Another remarkable thing about the area, the diversity. Not only do we have this great soil, but we've got this diversity of product that that comes out of it.
They're just doing great work, both in the culinary side and the food growing side and the educational component that goes along with it.
So tell me what inspired you during the filming of Farm to Fork that you may not have realized about the farmers in our own backyard prior to doing this series?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go as far as to say I didn't know it. But the thing that always amazes me about these folks is just their personal stories, you know, and their personal commitment to what they do and all the why and everything else that goes behind that, you know. So that's a big part of why I am so inspired in general by these folks, but it definitely every single time is just sort of mind-blowing.
You've always been an advocate for local food, which is why we reached out to you when we had this opportunity to do the series. Why were you initially drawn to local farmers, and how did that become part of your mantra?
Yeah, I think it's just partly just having a local sense of pride in no matter what you do or draw from your community. So it sort of started with that, and as I was able to hone that into how it applies to food, it's just a domino effect of a thing. So you start off by just being interested in what's happening in your own backyard and wanting to support those that are in your backyard, get the freshest possible product. But as soon as you open that door, and I think it's the same for any chef or home cook that goes that route, it's just very rewarding, and you can't really turn back. So once you rule out the things that you can't find locally, you know, pineapple, things like that, then you kind of devise this plan as to how you're going to support local throughout your journey. And it's just been one that's rewarded me and given back. It feeds into my business in more ways than one, pun intended. And there's just no real looking back from there.
Now, the Fat Sparrow Group is currently headquartered in St. Jacobs, which is known for its culinary traditions, namely the Mennonite culture, because there was the stone crock there for a number of years. How have you brought your vision to reimagine what's going on culinary-wise in St. Jacobs?
We just try and really live that story. You know, I think when people come to St. Jacobs and any community like it, so close to a world-famous farmers market and so close to so much agriculture, people expect to see that very thing happening, that farm-to-table story. And I don't always find that it happens as much as it should. So we just hope that we're doing as best a job as we can, and what the folks think that they're coming to see when they come to St. Jacobs. And I think that's so important from a culinary point of view, from a tourism point of view, to make sure that when folks visit us, they're getting that experience that they expected, you know. And I think that when you drive by that farmer's market and the farm fields in between it and us, you just expect that we're going to be buying our potatoes from around the corner, and our cabbage and our apples and our honey and all of those things. So we do proudly, and as a bit of a mission, and we try and do it as often as we can. And like I said, I think it's really expected by the people who visit the community.
Someone else has just joined us at the studio table, the director and producer of Farm to Fork, Julian Wierzbicki. Thanks for dropping by.
Well, thanks for having me.
We were just talking to Nick about the Fat Sparrow Group and how the local food movement, Farm to Fork, Farm to Table, so to speak, inspired him long before the series came out. But you and I have been talking about this for some time, because here we are in Stratford, and even in Waterloo Region, which was a big supporter through Explore Waterloo, we're surrounded by some of the richest agricultural farmland in Canada. And we don't know the backstories of some of these farmers who put their lives and sweat equity into what they produce for our supermarkets and for our restaurant tables. What motivated you and what did you learn from the process, Julian?
Well, one of the more interesting things that I discovered is the multi-generational how many farms in the area have been passed down from generation to generation, and how many multi-generational farmers there are. I mean, at Mountain Oak, they're on their 7th generation of of dairy farmers and cheesemakers.
This is Mountain Oak Cheese in near New Hamburg, which is one of the episodes featured in the show.
Right, but almost all of them. There was Oak Ridge Acres, which is a third generation. Fall Harvest Farm dates back to farmers that were working that land before Canada was a country, and they have the deed of the house to show it. In fact, the house that we looked at was built by rocks that were taken out of the ground,
fields.
of the fields, and Barry's asparagus, who we didn't do an episode, we talked to. I mean, they're the fourth generation. So there's so many multi-generational farmers, and they really seem to enjoy it. Almost all of them, shoe orchards. Now their son is involved in it, not so much in the farming, but he's still on the more on the marketing side, but he's in the business. They seem to I don't know if it's genetically, but they adopt the love of the land and the love of making the produce that they get from their parents who got it from their parents. And in this area, that just goes on for generations. It's really quite remarkable.
Now, the mandate of this first season was to showcase farms and experiences in Waterloo Region, because Explore Waterloo was one of the main sponsors of the show. When you were laying out the series, how did you decide those 6 episodes, those 6 by 10-minute episodes, how did you decide to give it as a broader perspective of what they produce as possible? You couldn't have all beef farmers. You had to create a mix. So give us an overview of the mix. Then I'll ask Nick to talk about how he used that to create unique dishes.
Well, as you said, we don't want all beef farmers, so we wanted a mix. We wanted variety, which was one of the again, another remarkable thing about the area and the diversity. Not only do we have this great soil, but we've got this diversity of product that comes out of it. I mean, we have the bison, which were quite amazing. We have the cheese, which was amazing, and the pumpkins that they grew, and some of the vendors that we didn't even use. I mean, we've got the asparagus, like I talked about, and we talked about the Elmira tomatoes and the apples, and it's just so rich and so diverse. It's not like, well, I can't speak for going to the prairies, but if we went to the prairies, you assume that it's more homogeneous. But here, it's a whole gamut of different crops and products. But what is consistent is the passion of the people that grow it and make it.
And Nick, there was an Indigenous component that was brought to the series. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, the folks at Wissahick to Winawak, who work through White Owl ancestry in our region in Waterloo. We've worked with them a little bit through one of our restaurants where we have an Indigenous chef, and we've developed a relationship with them and sort of learning about some of the products they're growing and some of the ways they prepare it. And I was really excited to be able to go there. So they have 4 properties around the region that they are working through the city and other partners to use and to grow foods that are either at risk of disappearing. So things like historically important squash and grains and tobacco and such, and then other farms that they use to produce foods for their community. So they run a system where they're sending out boxes of foods to the people in their community in need, and they're just doing great work, both in the culinary side and the food growing side and the educational component that goes along with it for their community, but then for our community when we're brave enough to open up our ears and listen.